Hello again. I am Gedalia Meyer, teaching for Root Source, Israeli Jews teaching Christians worldwide. We are in lesson 4 of the continuing series, Images of God, Names of God, in which we explore the different ways that Jews have had of understanding what God actually is, the different ways that God appears to us, and to the people in biblical times. We call these the images of God. We've been exploring this through the various names of God as they come up in the Bible. So far, we've been exploring one name, the name Elohim, which is the first name of God that comes up in the Torah itself. It's the name in the entire creation narrative. It's the image of God as the creator, as the force of nature, and various other things that we shall explore as we proceed in this series. Today, we are going to be exploring a particular aspect of this image, which is the image of God as both a creator and a maker. And this is specifically in regard to the creation of human beings, as the title here indicates, Let Us Make Man. So let's go right to these verses. They're extremely important verses to understand what they mean and how Jews have understood these verses. So moving right along here we have the famous picture we've seen before. Everybody knows this picture. Michelangelo on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel in the Vatican, and there is God over there, and there is Adam over here, and it's God. It looks very strong, powerful, reaching out to touch Adam to perhaps create him or give him some sort of energy of life, whatever exactly it is. An extremely famous, very graphic image that shows to some degree the creation or the making of man. And this image, perhaps more than any other image, any other visual image in human history, has been the way that people have understood what exactly this making of man is. We see all the angels back here with God, perhaps helping God out or looking on or wherever exactly they are doing. And there is Adam receiving this power from God. He's still meek right now, but he will not be meek for long as soon as God charges him up. That is the classic image. Let's see how the Bible sees this same scene. So here we have in verse 26 of chapter 1 of Genesis, Vayomer Elohim, Na'aseh Adam b'tzalmenu kidmutenu, v'yirdu bidgat hayam, uba'of hashamayim, uba'behema, uva'chol ha'aretz, uva'chol ha'remes ha'romes al ha'aretz. The translation is, and Elohim said, Let us make man in our image as our likeness, and they shall subdue the fish of the sea and the birds of the heavens and the mammals and all the earth and all the reptiles that crawl on the earth. So here we have an extremely famous verse. It ranks up there in perhaps top 10 most famous verses in the Bible because of the famous expression, let us make man, and then followed by in our image as our likeness. So we have a lot going on here. Again, this is the image of Elohim. This is not one of the later names of God like Hashem, the most common image of God in the Torah. It's the Elohim image, which is the image of the creator and the force of nature. And as we saw last week, the image of the one who spoke and makes things be. So here we have, again, God speaking, Vayomer Elohim Na'aseh Adam. God is speaking here, but it's introduced by this phrase. God doesn't simply speak and something comes to be in this case. God has to make what appears to be a suggestion. Let us make man. Who is God suggesting this to, and who is going to be the being, the entity that helps God out in this making of man? Is it the angels? That is the classic view, which seemed to be on that Michelangelo painting there. That's the classic view. Jews have also had this view that it's the angels to whom God is proposing that they help God out in the making of man. This, of course, brings a question about if God didn't need help in any of the other parts of creation, like the heavenly bodies or the animals or the plants or whatever, why does God all of a sudden need help from angels in the making of man? It's a famous question. Jews have had their share of answers to this question, and we have to see what a real solid answer that works for us will be. The clue perhaps that we have, and the second big problem with this text is, with this verse, is B'tzalmenu kidmutenu, which means in our image as our likeness. What does it mean to be created in the image of God or the likeness of God? What exactly is the image of God? It's something that this creation, man, will look in some way like God, somehow resemble God in some way. And that's what's being proposed here, is God is going to make this being, this man, to look like God in some ways. I mean, physically, with the same body, that God has a physical body like man. That would certainly seem to be supported by that painting from Michelangelo, that God didn't look all that dissimilar from man. God looked more powerful and so on, but essentially God had a human form. Jews have never been able to accept this idea, and therefore, B'Tselmenu Kidmutenu, in our image as our likeness, cannot possibly mean to Jews some sort of physical form, a common physical form that is shared between God and human beings. Let's go to the next verse to see if we get any help. So the next verse says, Vayivra Elokim et ha'adam b'tsalmo, b'tselem Elohim bara oto, zachar u'nekeva bara otam. And Elohim created the man in his image. In the image of Elohim he created him, male and female he created them. It's a rather confusing verse. It's a very famous verse, rather confusing. First of all, when the previous verse said, let us make man, and this verse says that Elohim created man. Created man. So what's the difference? God was going to make man, and all of a sudden it's a creation. We have already clarified the difference between the different activities that God uses in creation, one of which is making, one of which is perhaps forming, that we're going to see later on. Another is creating. There is speaking, all these different activities, and creating is unique in that it's the creation of yesh me'ayin, something from nothing. That's a unique ability to God alone to create something from nothing. God originally proposed to make man, and instead God created man. What is this, a change in the plan, or is this the actual plan itself coming to fruition in some way? This has to be explained. So again, reading the verse, God created the man in his image. In the image of Elohim, he created him. Does seem a little bit repetitive. Created him in his image, and then in the image of Elohim, he created him. Seems to be the same sense. And then it says male and female, he created them. We've already seen a verse that talks about the formation or the building up of the woman, as if she hadn't been formed up until sometime in the second chapter of Genesis. A side was taken from Adam and so on, and that formed the woman. So how are females being created right here early on in chapter 1 of Genesis? It's another question that has to be answered. But to answer this first question about the difference between making and creating, in the italics here we see the word the. Now, the is a very insignificant word in English, but it's highly significant in Hebrew. The difference here is one single Hebrew letter. Vayivra Elokim et ha'adam. It says God created. The word et again doesn't really mean anything. It's a grammatical structure. But ha-adam, the letter hey here, ha, the syllable ha, means the man. In the previous verse, it says, Vayomer Elohim na'aseh adam. Let us make man. Instead of the man, it's simply man. So does this make all that? Can a single letter, which is a small English word, make all that much of a difference? Perhaps we could propose the following, that this does make a huge difference, and it's the difference between creation and making. There is man, as in the species of human beings. Let us make man. We will make man. It doesn't say who the we is. God and something else will go about the process of making man. Making means taking a product that exists and fashioning it into something that is more appropriate for whatever God has in mind. That is the making of man. The creating is a different thing. That's creating something from nothing. Part of this making of this human race involves a creation of something from nothing. That is the creation of the man. The difference between man and the man, perhaps, is the following. The man is the individual. Each one of us has a totally unique personality, a totally I that is us, and that it doesn't belong to anybody else. It is our unique soul. That is, we are part of the human race, but each one of us has a unique soul, and what in Judaism is called a neshama, a soul that belongs to us alone. That is a creation of something from nothing, that soul. Creating that individual is not the same as creating the human race. The human race is essentially what can be boiled down to an advanced animal, not necessarily supporting the idea of all the ideas of evolution and all that, but we do have DNA, we do have physical bodies, we do have a heart and a brain and all that. We live, we die. These are all part of human beings as as part of the human race. It's just another creature out there, another living being. The Torah doesn't make any major distinction between man as a human race and the animals. They're both called by the term nefesh chaya, as we shall see, a living being. But the man is a whole nother ballgame. The man is the individuals. Each individual is totally unique. Each individual is a creation in and of themselves. They had to be created something from nothing. So that individual was created bitsalmo, in his image, in God's image. Bitsalom Elokim bara oto. In the image of Elohim, he created him. And then male and female, he created them. All of those individuals, males, females, they are all unique. Each one of us is our own unique creation, a creation of something from nothing that had to be created only by God. What do we do about this first verse? Na'aseh Adam b'tsalmenu kidmutenu. Let us make man. Who is the man? Who is going to make the human race? So I would like to propose the following. It's not necessarily the angels that are going to help out God, that God is asking for help from, but it is individual people themselves. God is sort of speaking to these future individuals, these future creations, and saying, I need some help with this one. This is not the animals. This is not the plants. This is not the planets. This is not any of that stuff. The sun, the moon, the stars. Those were those were a walk in the park compared to this one. I needed no help with the sun, the moon, the stars, the plants, the animals, all of those. How difficult as they were and as brilliant and as complex as they are, God says, I can handle those myself. With this one, I need some help. I need help from you, all you future individual creations who are going to be the individual who make up your own lives and decide who you will be and choose whichever path you are going to walk down in life. I need you to help me make this human race. You and I can construct this human race. You'll have to tinker with it as you go through human history, the long path of human history. It will be made up of the individual paths of individual human beings who are their own individual creation. You and I shall make man. You as individuals, and I will provide the raw material through which you can work, the world, the heavens, the earth, the animals, your bodies, your minds, everything like that. Your souls, I will create it all, I will provide it all, but you and I have to make it happen, have to make it develop into something that can truly be called our image and our likeness. So it's a shared image, not just of God and not just of man, but in some way the result will be a combination of the image of man and God. Let us make man. You and I, God and individual human beings, will make man. This perhaps is what it means to be created in the image of God, is to share something with God, to share the ability to create. We also create. God creates and we create to some small degree. We create the people who we will be. And we also to some degree shape the path of human destiny, just as God does. The conclusion of this is the famous verse, Vayvarech otam Elohim, Vayomer lehem Elohim, Peruruvu umilu et haaretz v'kibshuha, urdu bidgat hayam uba'of hashamayim uba'chol hachaya haromeset haaretz. And Elohim blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and conquer it and subdue the fish of the sea and the birds of the sky and all the animals that crawl on the earth. If human beings succeed in their path and they take their role in making the human race to be what it is, they choose the individual path that works, then that they will receive the blessing of God. To be fruitful and multiply, to fill the earth. To conquer it means to make it become the earth that God planned, so that the fish, the birds, the animals can all live the lives that was expected of them, that was part of the plan of creation. If we fill our part, then God will fill God's part. With that, we are going to end lesson 4, Let Us Make Man. I am always happy to hear from you. Please contact me anytime at this email. I love to interact with my students. Have a great week.